Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne, and we broadcast over Verizon Fios in Lower Merion and Radnor, and over Comcast in Lower Merion and Radnor. So you can see us on a lot of different stations with both of the providers, which is very exciting because for a long time I could never see my show on television because I live in Lower Merion and I have Comcast as my provider. Anyway, we like to showcase people who are doing interesting, important things in the community, whether it's cultural, whether it's academic, whether it's political. And we're lucky that we have somebody who's involved with everything, especially politics. Eleanor Dezzi is with us today. Eleanor.
Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to the studio. And now that you're a registered mainline resident.
That's right. That's right.
We welcome you.
Thank you. After my whole life in Philadelphia.
After your whole life in Philadelphia, now you're in the main line.
That's right.
And in the mainstream, as a matter of fact. Anyway, Eleanor is, we call her the last woman standing.
That's right.
Because she's one of the founders of the Genevieve Society. So tell people what the Genevieve Society is and what it was meant to do.
Well, the Genevieve Society was founded about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was a group of women. It was Abby Fletman, Denise Smiler, Mary Rita D'Alessandro, and myself. And we always went to the Pennsylvania Society in New York, as you do. We always sit together at the dinner. And we said, every party we go to are suits. It's always hosted by men. What about us? So we decided to host a get-together and salute women who are doing great things, not only in elected office, but appointed office, public service, and corporate governance. We also felt this would be a good way to get women, young women, to look at this as a career path and also help them and mentor them. So we started, and our first one was pretty well attended. And then word got around about this women's event, and anyone who was running for office decided, hey, we're going.
Yes.
Because they know women vote. So every man who was running for office came, and then all of a sudden the women started to run for office. And what happened was some of the women that were founders were very successful. Abby Fletman became a common pleas judge in Philadelphia.
She was elected, so she can't participate.
She can't participate anymore. Denise Smiler became legal counsel to the governor. She can't participate. Mary Rita D'Alessandro moved out of the area and couldn't participate. So I was left. But we have a large membership, and the first 25 women who joined were called charter members. Here's one of our charter members, Bonnie Squires. So Bonnie, along with a young woman, Aubrey Montgomery, who's president of Rittenhouse Political Consultants, stepped up, and they're working with me to continue the mission. The Genevieve Society is named for Genevieve Blatt, a woman back in the 50s and 60s who was a real trailblazer. She was elected to statewide office, and
she was the first woman in Pennsylvania history to be elected to statewide office. She also ran, albeit unsuccessfully, for United States Senate against Senator Hugh Scott. She came close.
She did.
She came close. She was an amazing woman.
But she was quite a trailblazing woman, and so we decided to name it the Genevieve Society after Genevieve Blatt in her honor. And she never married. She didn't have any children. So we thought, well, this was a way to continue her legacy. And what we do in her honor. And as a thank you for her being such a trailblazer.
She was remarkable.
Yes.
Well, we've been involved with other trailblazers like Hillary Clinton. Can we mention that name?
So as we started the society, we started talking to the Center for Women and Politics, which is at Chatham University out in Pittsburgh. That was founded by another trailblazing woman, Elsie Hillman. And she just passed away.
The late Elsie Hillman.
Yeah, in her 90s.
She was the most remarkable woman. A Republican, but I have to tell you, I admire her tremendously.
Absolutely. So she founded the Center for Women in Politics at Chatham. They partner with us at our reception, but we partner with them in something called Ready to Run. And it's an annual seminar, and it's for young women especially, or women who have done other things who are interested in either public service, corporate governance, or elected office. And we get together for an all-day seminar. We have panels, we have discussions. Some very interesting women are going to be attending. It's been held at Drexel University for a long time, but this year it's going to be at Philadelphia University up in East Falls, right down the street from the Grace Kelly House on Henry Avenue. Plenty of parking, free parking, and it is Saturday, February 13th. And I know that you're going to put up the website where if anyone's interested to register, they can register. They can register up to the last minute. There are, like I said, there's a lot of panels, there's a lot of discussions, there'll be a keynote speaker, and it's all women who have done things in the public sector, whether it be elected, appointed, or whether they've gotten on corporate boards. That's the real thick glass ceiling, the corporate boards.
Absolutely. The Catalyst organization, which is a big nonprofit based in Manhattan, every year they put out a report, the number of women on corporate boards, especially from Forbes 500, and sad to say, the number's shrinking. It was never big to begin with, but it's shrinking. And when we look at Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania has 18 members of the United States Congress. No women. Not one woman. When Congresswoman Allison Schwartz stepped down to run in the primary for governor, that was it. And we don't have a single woman representing the state of Pennsylvania.
No, we don't.
And the state legislature, not great.
Not that great. Many, no. State Senate, not that many.
No.
So what we're trying to do is we're saying, well, we don't have any now. What can we do to encourage women to begin to look at elected office? And we're also telling them, what does it take? Because sometimes people just don't know how to get on a ballot. They don't know how to talk to the political parties. How do I become a candidate? Have I done anything that helps me be out there to be a candidate? That's everything that happens at Ready to Run. We're going to be doing panels on navigating the political system, becoming a part of the political system while remaining your independence to be a candidate. So it will be an interesting day.
And it's for both parties.
It's bipartisan.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because the Genevieve Society,
we are bipartisan.
We're bipartisan, and we have as many Republicans that show up at our reception at the Waldorf every year as we have Democrats.
We do.
Because they want to go where the votes are.
Now, what we want to do is in the fall, we're also going to have a reception here in Philadelphia, because after the primary, we're hoping that we have some women nominated on both sides to run in November. So we will have a reception in Philadelphia for the women candidates. There'll probably be one in Pittsburgh, too, so that women can come and get to know the woman candidates.
Yes.
And that will, again, be bipartisan. We just want to see women represented at the level where we are in society. You know, I had all sons, but all of a sudden I have 3 granddaughters. And I'm looking at these little things and I'm saying, I want to make sure you have a seat at the table. So that's one of the reasons that I'm really strong about this Genevieve Society and doing Ready to Run. Because, yes, we don't have any now, but if we sit back and just bemoan the fact that we don't have any, what's going to change? What we do is we get out there, we encourage women to come, we ask them to sit down, we want them to network, and the other thing is we want them to get to know each other so that they can support each other. And by support, I mean not only financial, but emotional support. But financial support is really important, and we have to get women to write checks, Bonnie.
You know, it's very interesting. On the one hand, almost everybody that's running for office complains about the fact that they have to spend all their time on the phone begging for funds. And yet, I get, you must get into, I get a dozen emails a day soliciting a contribution.
Yes.
And I don't know how we're going to make the field a level playing field and get rid of this requirement. I mean, when you hear the amount of money is being spent in the presidential primaries, oh my God. You know, there are a lot of nations in the world that don't have that kind of money for the whole, you know, economy in the course of a year. I mean, what Jeb Bush is sitting on how much, like $35 million?
$35 million, yeah.
$35 million. Oh my God.
What could you do with that for women and
Jeez.
children
And schools? Yes,
Yeah.
and a lot of good things.
So, one of my
But-
heroes in politics is Madeleine Albright. And of course, Madeleine Albright is vertically challenged like you and I. She's
Yes.
one of the small women in politics. But she once said, and I think it's so true, she said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. And I thought, coming from her, a former Secretary of State, that's a really important
The first
quote.
woman Secretary of State.
That's right. And I think it's very important that we support each other. And now, if a woman comes and she's not a good candidate, I'm not saying support her.
Right.
But if a woman, usually, if they get through the morass of becoming a candidate, they're pretty good because it's a tough process. And if they get there, other women should join them and support them.
I agree with you 100%. But let's talk about what this process is, because you don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll run for Congress. It doesn't work that way.
No.
There are so many opportunities along the way, and volunteer work is very important.
Very important.
Whether you're a committee woman for either party, and we know that the women carry
We are the worker bees.
the worker bees. They don't get credit for it, but we are the worker bees that organize the parties, that organize the petition campaigns, that schlep around from door to door and get the signatures.
signatures, yes.
And we're in the midst of that right now.
That's why we hope and pray the snow goes away so that it's easier to
Yes.
get from house to house to get
Yes.
signatures. You're absolutely right. And so you don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do that. What you do is you wake up one day and maybe you have a son or daughter that's getting ready for school, and all of a sudden you start looking at the schools and you say, oh, I really don't like what's going on here. Well, then you run for school board. You get involved with the Parent Teachers Association. You get known in your community. And, and then if you have a political leaning, whether it be Republican or Democrat, then you can go that route. But a lot of times getting involved at the grassroots level, whether it be a civic association, a community association,
Or
an
your-
advocacy organization.
Your church or synagogue.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
And anytime you take a position with a volunteer organization, keep a record of it.
Yep.
Because that counts. It counts if you're going for a graduate degree.
Absolutely.
They want to know your life experience, and they'll give you credit so that you don't have to take so many courses.
Well, nowadays, a lot of women who got married young and decided to have their children are going back to school. And a lot of the colleges and universities, because I'm on the board of Gwinnett Mercy University, which is my alma mater, they have programs called Life Experience.
Right.
And you get credit.
CLEX.
Yeah.
Credit for life experience,
Yeah.
CLEX.
And you go in, and when they find out you've been on a school board or a PTA, or you've been on a parish council or a synagogue board or something, they ask you about that, and that counts towards your credit. So you may not have to take 20 courses, you may only have to take 12.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so it really does count to be involved. So, that's why we ask women to join the Genevieve Society. They may not ever want to run for office, but maybe they'll go into appointed office. They'll work for an administration. They'll work for a congresswoman or a congressman or a deputy mayor, or there'll be something like that. Or maybe they'll find a company, a bank or something, that will be looking for someone with their skills, and they'll get on a corporate board. Every woman that gets on a corporate board, or every woman that gets into an elected office, she's bringing along other women. We stand on each other's shoulders. We really do.
You probably are thinking, where do I know her face from? Well, Eleanor is a political operative, I'll say. She's an expert. And you probably have seen her on Channel 6, their Sunday shows, on Fox TV, on NBC 10, giving advice and explaining what's happening in politics. One of the things that hurts our heart is what's happening with Kathleen Kane, because she
Yeah.
was one of the
Rising
stars.
star.
She was one of the stars at our Genevieve Society in 2014, but by 2015, the star has been dimmed tremendously. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know
with
what's
her.
going to happen.
But the men are lining up to run
yes,
for
and
that
actually
post.
I heard today that she has not made a decision whether she's going to run or not. She's going to make that decision in the next 2 weeks.
Well, when Congressman Bob Brady, who chairs the Philadelphia delegation, very powerful man, he went public a year ago saying, I will not support her for re-election. And Governor Wolf has also asked her to step down.
Yes.
So she's got two powerful Democrats saying, don't do it because you're going to taint the rest of the pool of people.
Yeah. And, you know, it's really interesting because when you hear things like this, I hear people say, our government is so corrupt. Everyone's corrupt. Well, there's an interesting thing happened yesterday. There's an international organization. It's called Transparency International. It's a global organization, and their one mission is they look at every country. There's 167 countries they look at, and they rank corruption.
Ouch.
And I want to tell you, out of the 167 countries, the one with the least corruption was Denmark, and then Sweden and Finland. All the Nordic countries were in the top 10. Somalia and North Korea were tied for 167. But the United States of America this year, the report just came out yesterday, so I'm glad we're getting to talk about it. We were ranked 16 out of 167. That's not bad. You're going to have a few bad apples everywhere. Okay, we know that. But 16 out of 167 is not bad. And this organization, if anybody wants to look it up, is Transparency International. And what they do is they look at every country, they research and look at government corruption. And there we go, 16 out of 167. We're not doing too bad.
But when it hits close to home,
well, that's
different. Another story.
Yeah. It's hard, but you have to realize, you look at, you look at all the other people serving, and when you look at government, you can't just look at the ones that are the face of government, the elected senators and reps and what have you. You have to look at all the staff behind them, all the government agencies, labor, human services, EPA, all of them, FEMA, that are doing good things every day.
That's true. But then when you hear on KYW, you hear about someone whose mother was prominent for 30 years in politics, and it turns out that she was the chairman of a board of a mental health facility, and she started out, she owned the building that housed the agency. She started out charging them $4,500 a month and ended up charging them $25,000 a month, and then had a friend buy the building next door and rented for $75,000 a month. Where did that money go? It didn't go to the mental health clinic. You could be sure of that.
And you have to understand,
that's embarrassing.
Zane Meminger, excuse me, who is the U.S. attorney for this region, very, very, very stellar attorney, stellar attorney general, U.S. attorney, really doing a good job. You know what? He's been investigating that since June of 14. So that's a year and a half of investigation. When the feds, as they say at 6th Street, come in and start looking at something, they comb through it and they really get to the bottom of it. And I feel very bad. I said it's very sad.
It is sad. It's tragic because...
It's tragic for the people that needed the services.
And not only that, but it's tragic for someone who is fabulous, who serves in the state legislature, who has the same last name.
Yes, her sister.
That hurt my heart because...
Who, God bless her, is
in
a wheelchair and goes to that Capitol every day.
Every day, and she's the best.
And does a great job
Senator
for McGee.
Tina Tartaglione. Yeah. And every time I heard the name Tartaglione at KYW, the sister's name is Renee, I said, it has to impact negatively on Senator Tina Tartaglione. Her real name is Christina, but she's a role model for so many people with disabilities.
Yes. She's very active at McGee Rehabilitation Hospital. She does a great job.
She was just at the Einstein 150th Gala.
Yes.
Because she's a candidate for what they call rewalk. For people who've had an accident that severed their spinal column, it's a computerized system that allows people to walk
It's
again.
like a bodysuit that they put on
Yes,
and they can walk.
but it's a whole pack with a computer, and it moves the metal braces.
Yep.
It's just astonishing. And she's just such an advocate for
She is.
any kind of
And role
disability.
model, like you said.
Yeah, she's amazing, amazing. And I haven't talked to her.
Yeah, but
I'm
like
afraid
I said,
to talk to her.
you have to think of all the good people that are
Right,
doing good things.
The tens of thousands of people that are really doing the
Yes.
right thing, that
Yes.
really care, that are making life better for so many people.
But see, what happens too, Bonnie, what worries me is when women, especially, hear a story like that, it might give them pause to get into the political ring. They say, oh, I don't want to get near that. Where they have to understand that's a minority.
Right.
The majority of women doing good things on school boards or working for elected officials,
Social service agencies,
yes,
especially.
nonprofits, all, I mean,
Yes.
we are a city of nonprofits, let's face it. Volunteerism is so big in Philadelphia. And so many, that's the other thing. If people want to find out where they can volunteer, come to Ready to Run, because we not only have elected officials there and women who are doing things, but we also have the leaders of lots of nonprofit organizations where you can connect, where you might want to volunteer maybe one day a week or maybe one day a month, whatever time you have. So, I mean, it's a really good program, and it's all day Saturday, February 13th. And
Give yourself a Valentine gift.
that's right.
An early Valentine gift
And
by
come.
coming to Ready to Run campaign training for women at Philadelphia University. By the way, Philadelphia University just announced a merger with Thomas Jefferson
Yes,
University.
yes.
That's going to be very interesting because it's adding over 2,000 students to Thomas Jefferson University.
Well, it's not only doing that. What's happening with, what goes on at Philadelphia University, I mean, they're an engineering and textile school.
Right.
And so many of the things that are going on in medicine are connected with that. That's going to give Jefferson a leg up on their research. So
Absolutely.
It's wonderful. I mean, my son serves on a board at Jefferson, the Kimmel Cancer Center board, and Jefferson is just growing by leaps and bounds. They've just affiliated.
Stephen Klasko has done an amazing job. He hit the ground running, as we say, when he took over a few years ago.
He's not only an MD, but he's an MBA. So he's got a business head as well as a medical head.
And I was there when he had Sidney and Caroline Kimmel, and for the dedication of the Sidney Kimmel School of Medicine
right.
at Jefferson. Woo! That was a biggie. That's a biggie.
So Sidney Kimmel, for those who don't know, is the founder of Jones of New York. So we all have lots of his clothes in our closet.
Yes, absolutely. And Sidney Kimmel stepped up to the plate. There would not be a Kimmel Center on Broad Street if it hadn't been for Sidney Kimmel.
There wouldn't be the Kimmel Cancer Center at Jefferson.
That's right. But Ed Rendell was a friend of Kimmel's, and nobody would give Ed any money for this performing arts center until he went to Sidney. And Sidney, even though he's got a penthouse in Manhattan and he's got something in
Palm
Beach and in California, because he's also a movie producer as
Right.
well. But Sidney put down $12 million. Now, at the time, that was a huge amount of money. But I remember years later, after the fantastic opening and the success of the Kimmel Center, writing a column saying, how many multimillionaire philanthropists are kicking themselves that for a measly $12 million, they put their name right on Broad Street, a few blocks from City Hall.
Yeah.
So
and it's
prominent.
a wonderful center.
Oh, it's fabulous.
That's great.
It's just
they
fabulous.
have a children's theater there. I take my grandchildren there. We go to orchestra performance. It's just fabulous. But we just, there's a Sidney Kimmel, born and raised in West Philadelphia, a real Philadelphian who doesn't forget his roots.
Didn't forget where he came from, or that he took trolley cars when he was a kid.
That's right. That's right. So if anybody is interested, I know that you're putting the information up on the screen. Please give us a call. We'd love to have you come to Ready to Run. I think you would really enjoy the day. You'll meet a lot of phenomenal women that are doing great things in education, in nonprofits, in finance, in politics. It's very multidimensional. It's going to be a great day.
And we want to motivate women to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg said, because you can't just be quiet and be meek and mild. That doesn't get you anything in the corporate world. It really doesn't. And don't be afraid to speak. When I was at Temple University as a top administrator under Peter Leocoris, I was often the only woman in the room. And I noticed that. But also, Peter trained everybody. You never have a panel without diversity. You've got to have African American and Asian, and you have to have women and
men.
And because every once in a while, the Philadelphia Business Journal, they sent out information a while ago that they were going to have their first economic roundtable, and they listed all the people. I shot an email to them immediately. I said, "Did you notice you don't have one woman? What about Edith Mondre from Mondre Energy?
Judith
Mondre is
yes.
a good friend of mine, past president of ADL. Said, what about Leslie Richards, who was the Secretary of Transportation?
Former
and
county
you know
commissioner.
What? They said, thank you very much. And the next day comes a revised list, and there's Leslie Richards and Judith Mondre.
No, I mean,
but you have to call it to their attention because men don't think that way.
No.
They don't, unfortunately.
You have to get them to recognize,
Yes.
There's an old Irish saying that I saw in a pub in Ireland. It said, when two people agree on everything, one is unnecessary. So you have to have diversity, and you have to have people that don't see everything the same way, because that stimulates discussion. It stimulates ideas. There's another old saying that I always use when I lecture. I'll probably use it in my panel discussion, Ready to Run. It says, great minds think of ideas. Average minds think of people, talk about people. Small minds talk about nothing. So we're going to talk ideas, and we're going to talk about lots of things at this. We're going to have lots of ideas.
Well, I see you have Connie Williams on the cover.
Connie Williams is there. Renee Moore, who's from Montgomery County.
Love her. I've had her on my show. I've had Connie on my show. You on my show, and
Sherelle Parker, who just was a state rep.
Just became a city councilwoman.
Just became the councilwoman for the 9th District.
Now, they were only sworn in like a week and a half ago, and already she's got there's a major article about her and legislation she put forward in the Inquirer this morning, as a matter of fact.
Great.
So good for Sherelle. She also hit the ground running.
Oh,
yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah, so I mean, and most of the women that have gotten into elected office, they really know what they want to do when they get there. They're not sitting back saying, well, I'm going to wait till I introduce something. They know what they want to introduce. They know what they want to do. They know what committees they want to be on. So many of them want to be on education because they have children. They've experienced that. So many of them want to be on transportation because they've had problems with some of the people they work with getting to work and what have you. They understand low-income women need a good transportation system. There's all kinds of issues that women think of that, I'm sorry, it's different than men. We're wired differently.
Absolutely. And any psychologist and psychiatrist will tell you that women's brains are wired differently, and they have different strengths. And not that men don't have strengths too, but when there's a woman at the table, war is the last thing on the agenda, not the first thing on the agenda.
We'll talk our way out of anything.
Yes,
We don't pick up the guns until we talk our way out of something.
Absolutely.
And I always say that women who have children would be the last ones to send them off to war.
You got that right. Absolutely. Well, our guest today has been Eleanor Dezzi, who is one of the founders of the Genevieve Society. And we would love to see all of you at next December's Genevieve Society reception at the Waldorf in New York, and also on February 13th at Ready to Run at Philadelphia University. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.